Yes, particularly down in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas, where, as you said, 2004 was the first time it had snowed in over 100 years. That it was incredibly unusual, and especially the fact that it happened as well on Christmas Day. A lot of people considered it a miracle and a memory of a beautiful day they got to spend with their children or other family members.
All right, that happened in 2004. It is now 2020. What has happened to some of that snow?
You know, snow does not hold up very well over time because, especially if it's in a freezer where you're opening and closing the freezer door, some of that water vapor is escaping. It is evaporating or sublimating, and so they really don't hold up. So some people have had them, basically disintegrate into, small little ice remnants. Other people have had, relatives throw it away who didn't know what it was, or, one guy even said on Facebook that he got drunk and made a michelada out of his snowball.
We're speaking with Elizabeth Findell of the Wall Street Journal. How did you find these people?
Well, I moved to McAllen down in the Rio Grande Valley right out of college at the end of 2010, and I'm from a ski town in Colorado, so whenever I would tell people where I was from, the very first thing they would tell me about would be the one time it snowed in 2004 and the snowball they still had in their freezer, and I always thought that was so charming, and once I started at the Wall Street Journal, it was a good fit for the A-head.
Elizabeth, your story also talks about how the snowballs actually changed the direction of some people's lives. Can you talk about the guy who was in marketing now?
Yeah, there's a guy named Oscar Garza who made headlines all over the world in 2005 when he sold a one-year-old snowball from Brownsville on eBay for $92. He was a college student then. It turns out that despite the sale being widely reported, it didn't actually go through because he never received his money, so he held on to the snowball. But it kind of showed that he was able to make something go viral before going viral was as much of a thing as it is now. And so he's now a marketing consultant in San Francisco, and he said it comes up in every job interview he's ever done.
We do not save snow in New Jersey. Thanks, Elizabeth. Elizabeth Findell of the Wall Street Journal. It's coming up on 30 minutes after the hour on This Morning, America's First News.
Michigan is one of the best places in the country to do business, but you don't have to take our word for it. Take Patty Poppies, President and CEO of Consumers Energy, instead.
All of the innovation that's occurring around robotics, AI, it's happening here in Michigan. We have chemical companies, we have pharmaceutical companies, we have medical device manufacturers. Michigan is a magnet for innovators and dreamers.
Big things are happening in business here. Find out why by searching Michigan Pure Opportunity.
New year, new budgets. Every small business has unique needs. When you partner with a Dell Small Business Technology Advisor, you get real-time, tailored advice. They'll even give you a free audit on your servers and storage devices to develop a custom solution to help improve your company's productivity. Plus, right now, upgrade to Windows 10 and get up to 45% off select business computers with Intel Core processors. To speak with a Dell advisor, call 877-BUY-DELL. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
America's First News is online all the time. Follow us on Twitter @ThisMorningShow. Like us on Facebook or send us an email thismorning@compassmedianetworks.com.
Capital One is reimagining banking, offering accounts with no fees or minimums that can be opened in 5 minutes. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Capital One, N.A., member FDIC. Welcome back, Dungeons and Dragons, combat boots, and vinyl records. As Sharice Jones of USA Today tells us, it's true that everything old can become new again. Sharice, why are these things coming back?
We're living through really tough, divisive times, and I think that you always have generations that are new, kind of reaching back, but more so than ever, I think people want something that's familiar, that's comfortable. A lot of times reaching back to some of these old things connects you to your grandparents and your parents in a new way, and so people are just finding it very comforting. It's very authentic because these things are very old school and not part of this whole digital wave or digital age, and so there's a lot of retro items that have really become popular again.
Are you talking then about people in their teens and 20s discovering things that their parents had?
That's primarily it. I mean, you also have older generations that are getting into it, but really with young people, I mean, like the 90s is really big, right? And they're wearing the Power Girls sweatshirts, and they're discovering records. I mean, these are folks that grew up on streaming and on music players, and now they want to have an iPod, or they're going even further back and grabbing the record player or framing an album on the wall the way some of us used to frame posters. They're wearing the combat boots and that type of thing. So, yeah, it really is a lot of young people that are kind of rediscovering these old trends.
We're speaking with Cherise Jones of USA Today. Your story talks about some games, particularly Dungeons and Dragons, that people are playing because their older relatives may have introduced them to it.
That's right. Dungeons and Dragons has had this whole resurgence. I mean, there's young people who remember their dads playing it when they were little kids, and now they're playing it with their college schoolmates. I talked to young people that said they just love being able to get together with their friends in person, not just texting and kind of getting together digitally, but sitting in the same room and role-playing and telling stories. And so it's really had this renaissance. I mean, it's been tweaked a little bit. The rules have been changed a little to kind of attract new people, but folks are really getting into just the old-school vibe, how the game works, and remembering how they first discovered it.
You mentioned earlier iPods. What are some of the other old-school tech that young people are discovering?
They're getting into Game Boys, which is really interesting. They're kind of going pre-tech, like I said, in terms of buying record players and going to the record store and shopping for vinyl albums. They may be looking for something different than their parents would. I mean, they want to get Lil Nas X as opposed to, U2 or the Eagles. But the point is that they're really appreciating, this different way of listening to music, this different sound, something that, 15, 20 years ago had really become obsolete. And so now that's kind of a new fad. And yeah, the iPod, I mean, we think of the iPod as being relatively new, but if you're a teenager, you never had that. You grew up, with Pandora and Spotify and these streaming services. So that's become cool again as well. And Polaroid cameras. People are using an actual camera to take pictures instead of their smartphone, and then trying to figure out how to frame those pictures and put them on their walls.
Cherise, let's talk about fashion. You mentioned the combat boots, and your story also talks about classic sneakers. Don't those things kind of always stay around because they're always coming back?
Some things are kind of perennial in that sense. You're right. They kind of never go out of style with a certain segment of the population, but recently the sales of them have really soared. Like if you go on Pinterest or Instagram, you're seeing a lot more pictures posted of these items. Like I said, the sales have gone up. Something that was out of style for a very long time that's back in style is the fanny pack. That's something that you just connected with, your dad or your grandpa, and it was decidedly uncool, a big fashion don't. And I think that the sales have soared in something like the triple digits.
And from a marketing standpoint, these companies want to reintroduce their products, but with enough of a twist so that people will be forced to buy it again and not use the old one, right?
Absolutely, right. I mean, you want to, kind of connect to that nostalgia, but you don't want to have, some dusty Victrola from 1925. I mean, you want something that's a little different. So, record players have Bluetooth capabilities so that you can connect wirelessly to your earbuds. And like I said, Game of Thrones has, rules that are a little bit different. With combat boots, you can get them in the shade of white, which is something you would have never seen, 15 or 20 years ago. The fanny pack might be a little sleeker. So, yeah, you want to upgrade it a little bit, but still have some of that old school flavor.
Cherise Jones of USA Today. It's 20 minutes before the hour on This Morning, America's First News. Jennifer Kashinka in for Gordon Deal. Time now for the mic drop with this morning's Mike Gavin.
Good morning. Well, it's not far-fetched to say that some of us have leaned on a beer or two in times of emotional distress, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to have it next to us on a bus or an airplane. That's what one New York City man seemed to have claimed when he tried to register beer as his emotional support animal. According to the New York Post, Floyd Hayes filed the unusual registration with the USA Service Dog Registration website. He told the news outlet that he just wanted to see if it will work, saying that he travels long distances by bus and that you're not allowed to consume alcohol on those rides. He filed to have his beer acknowledged as an emotional support dog, saying that it helps him manage his social anxiety disorder. Unfortunately for him, a worker for the registration says that being registered won't actually help Hayes. The unnamed worker explained that the registration doesn't actually have any legal merit.
Let me get this straight. He wanted to see if it would work. And his thoughts about that, 99.99%, it would not, but he did it anyway.
Yeah. I guess, and again, this comes from, the idea that, you go on a plane and you see, 10 different, support dogs, quote unquote. So people start thinking, I'm going to push the boundaries a little bit, see how far I can go with this kind of thing.
Why didn't he just file some kind of medical paper saying he needed it?
Well, I think that's what they're telling him. They're like, look, you can file the paperwork all you want, but you still got to get some kind of medical clearance for this.
A beer is not a dog.
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Peanut, Jennifer, one of the most beloved mascots of the snack food world, is dead, apparently. Oof. An announcement about Mr. Peanut's demise was made on Twitter yesterday, along with a preview of an upcoming Super Bowl commercial in which the peanut-shaped mascot gets into an accident in the Peanut Mobile with actors Wesley Snipes and Matt Walsh, then selflessly sacrifices himself to save the two humans.
Hey, Mr. Peanut, no, you don't. Don't do it, Mr. Peanut. No! Maybe he'll be all right. Maybe not.
Now that's followed by a still image of a dark outline of Mr. Peanut, along with his birth and death years of 1916 and 1920. Planters is encouraging people to pay their respects using the hashtag RIPeanut and to tune in to Mr. Peanut's funeral during the Super Bowl.
That's so sad.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they're doing this, other than the fact that I guess it's getting people talking, right? It's getting us talking about it before the Super Bowl. And I would bet, Jen, that perhaps early in the Super Bowl, maybe in the first quarter, Mr. Peanut dies, but by the time the fourth quarter comes around, somehow he survived that tragic accident and will ride away in the Peanut Mobile, triumphantly.
He's resurrected.
Yeah, I think he might be dead, or we think he's dead for now. But by the time the game is over, Mr. Peanut will be back in the Peanut Mobile.
See, now we all have to tune in and stay with the Super Bowl all through the game to find out what happens with
I would
Mr.
love
Peanut.
to be able to place a bet on the whether
I'm sure there will be bets.
Whether Mr. Peanut is alive or dead.
Another prop bet for the Super Bowl. Is he really dead?
That would be nice.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, thanks, Mike. It's 13 minutes before the hour.
Now that Human Resources VP Ashley Campbell has Kronos for HR, payroll, talent, and time, she's managing her workforce like a rock star. She even has her own hype song.
I'm the spark before the fire. I'm the power in the train. I
have a really diverse workforce with different hours, skill sets, and pay grades.
Don't stop. I'm the dream and you should know that.
Now we're motivating and engaging the right people every step of the way.
Kronos, HR solutions for the modern workforce and the people who support them. Learn more at kronos.com/HR swagger.
Jennifer Kushinka in for Gordon Deal along with Rasa K. Well, yes, stress can turn your hair white. Scientists say they may have discovered why and a potential way of stopping it happening without reaching for the dye. In tests in mice, stem cells that control skin and hair color were damaged by stress from intense pain. In a chance finding, dark-furred mice turned completely white within weeks. Researchers from the U.S. and Brazil say this avenue is worth exploring further to develop a drug that prevents hair color loss from aging. Men and women can go gray at any time from their mid-30s, with the timing of parental hair color change giving most of the clues on when. Although it's mostly down to the natural aging process and gene, stress can also play a role. Scientists were not exactly clear how stress affects the hair on our heads. They now believe the effects are linked to stem cells that produce melanin and are responsible for hair and skin color. It's 9 minutes before the hour. Rasa K is here with 3 big things you need to know.
Well, Jennifer, House Democrats kicked off opening arguments in President Trump's impeachment trial by invoking the framers and urging the Senate to remove the president from office over his cold-blooded Ukraine scheme. Republicans all but ignored their impassioned pleas, some milling about in the hall outside. At a news conference at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, President Trump was equally dismissive.
It's a disgrace. They talked about their tremendous case And it's all done. They're tremendous case. They had no case. It's all a hoax.
Number 2, 17 people have died from an outbreak of a new coronavirus strain that originated